Hi everyone. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about link building 101 and what you should know about link building. So I've got James, Jodie and Andy with me today. How's everyone doing?
Very good.
Pretty good, thanks.
Great, thanks, Lewis. Yeah, great.
Good stuff. Perfect. So I've got a couple of questions that we just want to run through. So let's get straight into it. So first things first, what is link building?
So link building is an SEO technique where increasing the number of backlinks to your website can improve your rankings on Google.
I always like to sort of think about link building as I always sort of think, if you go to apply for a job and you have to get references from your existing employer, I like to think of link building as that, but sort of for online websites. So what Google's looking for is those references from other websites online that are happy to potentially push their traffic with a link through to your website because they are happy to reference you as a business and recommend you as a business online. So a link is almost like a reference in terms of a recommendation from somewhere else online.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. It's kind of like a vote from another website that you're good, that you know what you're talking about, that you're valid in your niche.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they wouldn't necessarily put a link on their website to send traffic from their website away from their site somewhere else if they weren't confident that there's value there in your content and your website itself.
Yeah, definitely. No, brilliant. And that leads nicely on to the sort of next question that we've got as well, which is why is link building so important?
So the importance of having a quality backlink profile is that they increase your chances of algorithms picking up the page you'd like to rank for. Having multiple pages with a built-up backlink profile will then improve your overall position on Google.
Yeah, so it's a massive part, isn't it, of the Google algorithm. Arguably, probably the most prominent part, the most prominent sort of algorithm point. I mean, there's over 200 different things, isn't there, that Google's looking at when it's deciding where to rank a website. And backlink building's always, or backlinks have always been a crucial part of any sort of ranking factor. It can really play a big part in allowing search engines to understand how popular your website is. So it's kind of saying the more people or other websites online that are willing to give you that link is showing that your website is more popular and therefore it should be ranked higher in the search engines.
Yeah, so for me, absolutely agree with those 2 points. There's sort of 3 main points that make link building important to SEO and to websites. So as mentioned, it helps Google find your pages and your content. If you've got a link pointing to your page, Google crawls the page that's linking to your page. It's going to see that link and find your page, so it can help Google find your content. And as we previously mentioned, it's kind of like a vote from that website about your content, that it's good, so it can help Google there. It helps improve your rankings there, but it also helps Google understand what your content is about to a degree, because it understands what that content that is linking to you is talking about, and then it can see the link coming through, also using anchor text and the sort of whatever paragraph or sentence the link appears in. It understands that, and so it can make that connection that if you're linking to this content, that content's got to be related to what the linking content's talking about. So it helps it build an understanding of your content as well. So for me, those are the sort of the 3 main areas of link building, why it's important to any website.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think that's a really good point.
Definitely. So a lot of people that are sort of just getting into link building don't really know where to start. It's kind of a myth to some people as such. So how do you go about starting link building?
So before starting, you need to make sure your website's already fully optimized. And then once you do that, make sure it's all ranking on Google Analytics, make sure all the internal linking's up to date, and then you can start thinking about offsite, where you go out to different websites. The main thing to target is relevancy. So if you had a website in the finance industry, you would want to go out to other finance websites to request a link onto their websites, and then it will give you a boost in the rankings.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point actually, about making sure your actual website on-site optimization is in place before you start looking at backlink building. I always kind of think that no amount of amazing backlink building is going to have a significant impact on your rankings if you haven't got those basics in terms of the on-site optimization sorted, because otherwise Google still doesn't know sort of which pages should rank for which keywords and where that how that relevancy plays in from the off-site point of view that Andy mentioned previously. It really has, the two have got to really work together. So get those basics right first before looking at implementing your link building strategy.
Yeah, exactly. Completely agree with what you've both said there. A lot of people just jump straight into link building because they sort of hear how beneficial it is, but making sure the fundamentals are right is really important. I think one good thing to start with is sort of a keyword mapping file and understanding exactly what you want each page to rank for and what it's relevant for. Because once you've got that sort of baseline, you can then understand exactly what you want users to be finding the site for and what's relevant for that page. And you can start link building through that anchor text and giving Google an idea of exactly what you want users to find that page for, which is going to help with your overall link building strategy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like I say, relevancy is the big one for me. Like James mentioned, it's all about relevancy. Sometimes people can get a bit too caught up on chasing numbers and trust or authority or whatever the metric of the tool of your choice is. People can get a bit too caught up in chasing those, but obviously they're important. They help. Better numbers, it indicates a better site, but relevancy is far more important in terms of helping your site. I'd rather have a link from a low whatever score site that's really topically relevant to what you're doing than a link from a site with a score 80 something, quite high score, but has no topical relevance to what you do at all. It's not going to help doing that.
It's just going to send the wrong signals, isn't it,
Yeah.
to Google, and ultimately not help that overall sort of goal of ranking for your target keywords.
Yeah,
exactly. No, exactly. So what are some of the different types of link building and what are the benefits of each of them types?
Right, so there's a few different types. So there's blogger outreach. The benefit of that would be to boost your backlink profile and ranking keywords. The main benefit is ranking for certain search terms. So let's say if you had a high ranking article on a website and it has one of your search terms as the anchor text, then when you go back onto Google and search that anchor term, it should come up as your website. And we have directory links. So directory links can be in the form of many different ways. You can place them on directories. The benefit would be getting your name and business out there. They don't really have like an authority benefit. It's mainly just getting your name out there onto different directories, and directories do have high authority anyway, so linking to them does help. And then PR links, so appearing on well-renowned news websites to bring in traffic to your site.
I think that the different types of link buildings, like you say, James, they all have their own benefits within their own right, don't they? So having sort of a mixture and Google wants to see a natural looking backlink profile. Google doesn't really want people manipulating that backlink profile and going out and actively trying to get links for themselves. In Google's kind of ideal world, links are just all naturally acquired for every single website. So coming back to like the directory listings, and even like having links on social media profiles and citations in your Google business profile and places like that, they are places that genuine businesses are expected to be listed. So if you're in the plumbing trade, for example, you would be expected to be listed in certain directories because it's the type of place that people will go to look for that kind of business. So as a sort of reputable and proper business, it's likely that you would have social media channels. So even though those links on social media channels will be no follow links and won't necessarily be passing any authority through to your domain, it's just another indicator that your business is present on certain platforms online and you've got that presence, and like James says, it's getting your brand out there, that getting that visibility in other areas that has traffic. So social media platforms have traffic, and directories will rank within their own rights, and people will come across your business, potentially click on that link to be able to visit your website or sort of see your brand name. So they can still work indirectly to help you with that overall sort of SEO piece. But then coming back to your kind of your blogger outreach, link building, the nice benefit there is that we've got that control over where we want to point that link back to, so we can target specific landing pages of your website. We've typically got control over the anchor text and the topical relevancy within the content that's being published on another website, and all of these things that we want to sort of try and help indicate to Google to help with the overall SEO strategy. More often than not, we can ensure that they're follow links, or it might even be that within the strategy we want to gain more sort of branded anchor text or branded type terms. We've just got a little bit more we've got a little bit more scope to mold what we want those backlinks to look like. And then sort of your higher level, the sort of the media, the digital PR links, absolutely brilliant for brand exposure, getting your business out there into media publications where you've got a really high level of readership. It's another place. It might be a higher authority domain that we're able to get that coverage on. The downside is that often won't be a follow link to pass that authority through, but again, it's got its own benefits within its own right that can help support and assist with the overall SEO strategy.
Yeah, absolutely agree with all you've said there. And yeah, I think like we said, different types of link building, they all have their own benefits, and depending on what you want to try and achieve. So as we said, doing PR, digital PR can really help drive brand mentions if you want to drive your brand mentions. If you don't want to drive your brand mentions, you might want to focus on different types of link building. We've touched on directories as well, but they can really help drive local searches. If you've got a local campaign focusing on local directories and getting links from those, really helps Google understand your business is focused on that location and that area, so it helps you rank for local searchers. So yeah, lots of different types of link building, each with their own benefits, and it really does depend on what you are trying to achieve specifically with your link building campaign, to which ones are going to be which type of links are going to be the ones to go for.
I think also it's probably important not to forget about internal link building as well. So we talk about link building and we immediately focus on offsite and how we're gaining those sort of authority links. But actually, if you ignore internal link building within your own website, you can be missing a big trick there, because link building even within your own website, and whilst that plays a part of a separate sort of part of the SEO strategy, that can help Google to understand sort of the authority of content within your own website as well, and help it to understand what's relevant to other articles. So if you've got sort of one page that's got lots of backlinks pointing into it, you can use internal link building to help pass that power a little bit further within the website to other relevant content.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So in similar, as we said earlier, that a link is kind of a vote that this site is good from external site. That same principle works internally as well, in terms of it's passing the, I'm not a huge fan of the term page authority, but it works quite well in describing sort of what we're talking about. In that authority, that ranking power of that page, it helps spread it out across your site. Also, where you place your links can have a factor on how Google views a page. If you're linking to a page from your header menu, that's a clear message to Google. That's quite an important page when it comes to your site, because it's linked from the header menu. If it's a page, the only link a page has coming into it is from the footer, Google's probably going to think that page isn't actually very important to your site, because you're not making it easy for a user to find their way to it. So that can have an impact as well. So yeah, all these things play a factor, and yeah, it's really important when thinking about links as well, not to neglect internal links as well as external.
Yeah,
sure, definitely. So we've talked a little bit about sort of link building, what it is, the benefits of link building. So I just wanted to discuss now sort of how outreach can play a crucial role within an SEO strategy. So how do different types of link building benefit SEO?
So I think like we've
Sorry, Andy, you go.
So I think, like we've mentioned, there's different types of links, and depending on exactly what you're trying to achieve with your campaign is will depend on what types of links you want to go for. The main benefit of external link building for SEO is, like we said, it's that vote of confidence in your site from the site. It helps improve your site's authority in the eyes of Google and your strength in the eyes of Google to help improve that ranking. I think also not to be neglected as well, while it's the main focus is the authority it helps, it can send traffic to your site as well. Generally, most sites you're not going to get a huge amount of traffic following over links, but you will get some. And if you land the right link, that sum could actually become quite a big chunk. And as long as, like I say, you're getting linked from semantically relevant sites and talking about relevant topics, that's valid traffic to your site that potentially you can then be turning into customers from your website. So there's that element as well. While the main focus is building your site's authority and building its strength, you can also pick up traffic from it.
Yeah, definitely. I also think it's important to make sure that backlink profile looks natural. So rather than saying, okay, we want to go for outreach links because they're going to get us follow links, the topical relevancy, we can choose the URL. But actually, if you just did one kind of link building and just focused on that, your backlink profile is just going to end up looking way too sort of forced, not natural. So making sure that different types of link building are always considered so that backlink profile looks really natural. Getting your branded links, getting your non-branded anchor text links, site-wide links aren't always good for a website, but there might be an occasion where they are relevant. And again, coming back down to the strategy and what the goals are and what's right for your website in particular, but even having that balance between follow links and no follow links, Google wouldn't necessarily expect to see a website that has 100% follow links. So having a look at, just taking a step back and having a look at the overall backlink profile, the number of referring domains that you've got coming into the website, that overall topical relevancy, that differentiation between anchor text. Have you got a mixture of different anchor text, and what, have you got branded? Have you got things that you would normally expect to see within that overall backlink profile? And that's where you can make sure you're getting the right kind of benefits from the right kind of link building.
Yeah, I was just going to touch in on that with the anchor text. So it's important to have the anchor text relevant to the content it's in, because I've seen loads of times where there's a piece of content and then there's just a click here now, and it's not relevant to the content. And it's important, if you want to drive traffic, like Andrew said, to your website, you need to make sure that the content is relevant to what your link is. It's very important, and clicking on anchor text where it's just like click here now is not going to do well for your website, I don't believe. So it must fit in within the content.
Definitely. I think the distribution of the links is important as well. So touching on what Jodie said previously in terms of how natural the backlink profile looks, if you've got sort of 300 links and they're all going to the same page from the same anchor text, that can come across as quite spammy. So obviously there's going to be certain other areas of a website that you want to target more than others, but making sure that you do have links going to sort of separate URLs and separate pages through sort of the anchors and the target keywords that you're looking for on them pages is important as well, rather than just having sort of all your links going to one page from a set anchor text, because obviously Google will recognize that, and the likelihood of everyone that's linking back to you using exactly the same terms isn't very likely. So like I say, that distribution of links through sort of separated anchor text is important as well. Perfect. So leads us into sort of the next question. So what kind of links would you say are the most valuable for SEO? I know we've touched on this a little bit already, but is there any types that you think are more valuable than others potentially, or?
I'm going to give the most infuriating SEO answer of them all. It depends. It really does. But in general, follow links carry more weight than no follow links, and using the right anchor text in them is important. But like we touched on earlier, you've got to make sure that link profile looks natural. It's spread out. You've got to, if every link pointing to your site is a follow link, that looks a bit dodgy, and chances are Google's not going to like it. But in general, follow links carry a bit more authority than no follow links, because follow link is basically you're saying we're putting, this is a real vote of confidence, and no follow link is, whilst it passes some authority, it's kind of saying we link to this, but we're not taking any responsibility for it. So you're still pointing people in the right direction, but you're kind of saying nothing to do with us though. Whereas the follow link, you're kind of making a bit more of a connection. So it does carry a bit more weight. But yeah, like I say, if they're all follow links, it looks dodgy. So it really does depend on, you've got to review your link profile as a whole and fill those gaps, fill those areas that are a bit lower, fill those areas that are missing. But in general, follow links using a core keyword as the anchor text is generally going to be what you're shooting for, but don't do it too much, because then it starts to look unnatural.
Yeah, and also just coming back to your earlier point, Andy, of the typical relevancy as well, the relevancy of where you're gaining that link from is going to be really valuable for you as well.
Yeah, I was going to touch in. So earlier we mentioned like local SEO and what's valuable to them. So directory links would be really important for like a plumber. Whereas a different industry, say finance or health industry, the most important would be either PR or blogger outreach.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. It varies, doesn't it, by industry and what's right. Looking at, who's ranking at the top of the SERPs for your target key phrases, and what do their backlink profiles look like, and taking that as kind of Google's indication of what it's looking for in terms of which websites are going to get that authority passed through.
Definitely. So what are some of the most common link building mistakes that you see on a regular basis then?
How long do we have? I think the main one is kind of like what we touched on before, people getting overly focused on one particular area. All the links going to their homepage, all the links using one keyword, every link being follow link, those kind of things, getting overly focused. Your link profile it has to look natural. So you've got to have a bit of a spread. You've got to have variation in there. It can't just be one keyword as the anchor text, all pointing at the homepage. Yeah, another one is lots of links from a single domain, from a single source. That can, whilst multiple links from a source do still help, there's a point where it gets a bit too much, and you're far better off spreading your link profile around. A link from a new source, all other elements being equal, is more valuable to your site than a second link from the same source. But yeah, it starts to look a bit iffy and a bit like you're trying to fiddle the system a bit. If you've say got 300 links all coming from one domain, that looks a bit dodgy. Why is that site linking to yours so much? It looks a bit iffy. So those are probably the two main mistakes that we generally see: overly focused on one particular area of their link profile, and too many links from one source.
Yeah, I also think consistency as well. So if you have 1 month where you gain 50 links and then the next month you gain none, it just shows that this month you've been targeting one page specifically and the next month you've done nothing on it. And I feel like it's not very natural to have a massive influx of links, where it should be consistent and spread it out over a couple of months.
Yeah, definitely. And also, just from a kind of, if you decide that, you want to outsource your link building, for example, and you want to get some help because you've either not got the time or resource to be able to do it yourself, or perhaps not at that level of confidence where you know what you're doing, it's really important to make sure that you opt for an agency or an outsourced link building agency that are doing it in a proper quality manual sort of way. We see instances where we get people come to us saying, oh, my traffic's dropped, or I've been penalized by this latest algorithm update, and you kind of instantly can look at the backlink profile link and say, oh yeah, we've got some really dodgy links there, because going back 10, 15, 20 years, when Google was in its infancy, people were just setting up websites for the sake of putting links on them to create a backlink. So it was just about get a number of backlinks and it will help your site rank in the search engines, whereas Google's algorithm now is so much more sophisticated. it can pick out those private blog networks that are literally just set up to get people to put links on them, and it will downgrade or kind of dismiss that that relevancy and that trust that you're getting from those links because it's not a good quality website. So opt into, particularly if if you're opting to outsource your links, there are certain places where you can just pick a URL and pay a cost for that particular a link on that particular domain, but you've just got to think how many other people are purchasing that link on that same domain. So actually going down sort of more of an outreach strategy where a link building campaign is more tailored towards you. So it's actively looking for websites that are in your topical relevancy, carrying out sort of manual checks, not only just looking at the metrics of a website, but having a physical person look at the website, make sure that it is a good quality website, the content on there is valuable, it's relevant to what you do and what your what your industry is. Does it look particularly dated in appearance, or does it fit within what your website does, so it doesn't look like you're getting links from websites that could potentially be spammy or have potentially been downgraded themselves in the past, that could have these sort of negative impacts on your own rankings and visibility.
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to say, so with these PBN sites that you mentioned, there is a way of telling. They always have the same template normally. If they're posting 10 to 20 articles a day, that's another big giveaway. If you do place on them sites and they're posting 20 other links already in the same day, what makes you think your website's going to gain any value from that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%. And we've mentioned sort of link relevancy and authority quite a lot so far, but can we just explain exactly what link relevancy is and what link authority is as well?
Okay, so yeah, I can jump in on this one. So link relevancy is how relevant the content that is linking to you is to what you're providing, the purpose of the page that is being linked to. What purpose does that serve for the user? How relevant is the content between the two? So how strong is the connection? It's difficult to put. You can't really put a number on relevancy. It's one of those things you can't really hang a number on it. But yeah, it boils down to how relevant are both of them. I mean, if one page is talking about how to have an amazing lawn and the other page is selling lawnmowers, see, there's a clear connection there. It makes sense. You need a lawnmower to look after your lawn. But if that page is talking about having amazing lawns and the other page is payday loans, doesn't make sense. There's no real connection there. So a link between those two is, well, it's essentially pointless because there's no connection there. It doesn't mean anything. No, people that are interested, well, they might be, but there's no connection between the two. People that are interested in looking after their lawns aren't interested in payday loans, at least not at that point in time. There's no real connection between them. And then authority is, there's lots of different tools, and whichever tool you choose to use, they usually have a different name for it, but it's kind of, and these do have a numerical score to them. It's the strength of the content that is linking to you, essentially. So you might have heard domain authority or domain trust or domain ranking or trust flow, and depending on the tool of your choice, they all have those various names. But it's essentially, it's their approximation of Google's algorithm to say how strong that page is. The stronger the page, the better it ranks, and the better it ranks, the more valuable the link from it is, the more authority that link passes to your page to help your page rank.
Yeah, it's looking at certain metrics, isn't it, to come up with that sort of overall score. So things like that website's own visibility, that website's own traffic, that website's own sort of metrics, to come up with that number that places it in a certain scale. But it's not really a real actual thing, is it? And like you say, Andy, they all the different tools that you use all have a different kind of score. They'll all vary ever so slightly. I think it's important kind of as SEOs and for us that are working on link building, just to ensure that we're looking at consistency. So making sure that we are understanding using one metric as a consistent kind of score, so we can really understand the difference between different websites' metrics.
For sure, yeah. I think a lot of people get bogged down in sort of one rather than the other. So they'll get really bogged down in the sort of really it needs a really good authority or it needs to be relevant. But in an ideal situation, it's going to have both. So it needs to obviously have the authority to be passing through to your website. But if, as Andy was saying earlier, for example, you're a plumbing site and you're getting links from like a pet store, it's not going to have any relevancy. It's not going to help the site so much and understand what your content's about. So making sure that you're sort of focusing on both of these areas when gaining links, I think is really important.
Yeah, and I think that's often where you find of course, the poorer link building services kind of jump in. You see that they'll get you 500 links a month for 50 quid, and it's like, yeah, great, but they're rubbish links. They'll be thrown up on PBNs, as we mentioned earlier, and they'll be terrible. So it's really important to pay attention to both, because bad enough, they can actually harm your site. Let alone, it's not a case of it just doesn't benefit your site, doesn't help it. It can actually harm your site if you've got a bad enough link profile and you've got links coming from rubbish enough sites. It can actively pull your rankings down rather than just not helping.
Yeah, definitely. I think 5 links on a relevant and high authority website is much better than 500 links on a PBN site.
Absolutely.
For sure. So we spoke a little bit about sort of no follow, do follow links already, but there's a lot of people that will say sort of no follow aren't very beneficial and you want all your links to be followed. But can we just go through a little bit about what's best in terms of no follow links, do follow, and brand mentions as well, what you'd recommend and what's best in sort of an ideal backlink profile?
Yeah, I think it's like I said earlier, you need an even spread across all these things. You need, brand mentions, you need your keywords in your anchor text, you need your keyword plus a bit more. So a sentence in your anchor text, not full sentence, that'd be a bit weird having an anchor text that was a full sentence, but your keyword with a few extra words in it as part of the anchor text. So you need a bit of a spread. You even need a few sort of click here and those kind of things, although you don't want many of them. You even would expect to see a few of them in a link profile because it just happens and it looks natural. So it's making sure you get that spread across all the elements and it's not overly focused on one particular area. But in general, like I said before, do follow and either brand mention or your core keyword in the anchor text are generally the ones you want to focus on. They tend to have the most SEO benefit, but like I say, it's got to remain natural looking. It's got to have that spread and have that diversity in the link profile. Otherwise, yeah, you're just losing any benefit that they may be providing because it looks unnatural and it looks like you're trying to manipulate the algorithm.
Yeah, definitely. I think if they're all the same anchor text and keywords that do follow, if they are all of them are click here for the service, then it will be the opposite to beneficial, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, as your brand increases, you're going to gain a lot more links naturally anyway, with alongside obviously the link building you're doing. So them sort of natural links are more likely to provide potentially click here links, things like that. So it's not a case that you'd need to obviously go and add any of them to your backlink profile when doing your when actually sort of outreaching. But that's a case of where you can sort of look to improve the individual URL authority and the anchor text that you're targeting, and obviously naturally you'll start to gain some more of the more natural links alongside what you're doing. Obviously at the beginning when the brand's maybe not as well known, it's a case of obviously looking at your main target areas and focusing whatever resource you have towards the areas you're targeting. And as I say, as the brand increases, you'll start to gain a lot more naturally as well. Perfect. So which would you say, we've sort of gone through it briefly already, but in terms of what we think, but which would you say is more important?
Relevancy, 100% relevancy. If it's not relevant, everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I'd agree.
totally agree. Yeah.
Great stuff.
That was a short one.
Yeah. So going in a little bit, we haven't spoke as much about sort of digital PR for link building as of yet. So what are some of the different types of digital PR?
So there's different ways that you can go about acquiring links in sort of top level media publications. It's not quite as, it's not quite as straightforward as outreach link building, where you can just create a piece of content and go, here you go, journalists, please put this in your article, or please publish this on your media outlet. Journalists want to be a lot more in control of their own content, but they are looking for press releases and they are looking for great content, and they need those ideas. So it's a more sort of long-winded process in terms of the effort and resource that needs to go into the different campaigns and how you sort of outreach and gain that coverage. However, one digital PR campaign might end up creating 15 backlinks on its own, or 50 backlinks on its own, or 100 backlinks, depending on sort of the size of the campaign, how far that's outreach to the media, how much it's picked up, and that all will come back to the idea that it starts off with. So kind of talking here, we're talking about sort of proactive campaigns, coming up with an idea that we think journalists are going to really like and pick up on the idea, and publish a story that will then contain a link back to your website. So there's all sorts of different examples of you thinking outside the box to kind of turn around and get that. It's what do people want to read about? What are people going to be interested in? And coming up with that angle. To sort of achieve the backlink from those campaigns, there's a couple of different ways of doing it, but a lot of the time it will be about creating something that means that the journalist needs to reference you as a business to place that backlink in there. So that might be coming up with some unique data or some kind of unique assets, which might be a graph or some infographics that can either be included in the press release. So then for them to use that asset, or to use that information, or the stats that you've come up with, they need to reference your business to give you the credit for that information. Or it could be in the way of coming across as an expert or an authority within your topic area. So if you can provide certain commentary on a topic, the journalists then need to reference you as that authority source of information and provide that backlink back to the website. So that's a great way of kind of being proactive, putting campaigns in place and putting ideas in place that we know journalists are going to like and pick up and want to use within their publications. But we can also get a lot of benefit from reactive PR as well. So we can gain coverage, we can gain brand mentions, we can gain more backlinks by monitoring things like journalist requests online. So journalists are, they've already got an idea for a story, they're running with something, but they need an expert within this field, within this topic, that can give them to give their story a little bit more oomph about it, to make it more credible. So they will reach out to PRs to say, I'm looking for somebody in this sector, in this industry, for a comment on X, Y, and Z, with a little brief. And it's our PR team's job to monitor those journalist requests, look for anything that's relevant to any of our digital PR clients, and say, yeah, we've got a client that can answer that question, draft up a response to provide that expertise. The journalist then uses that comment within their article, and then we end up with a backlink again by sourcing that information. So it is sort of a lot more sort of long-winded process, but we have got the potential to gain larger numbers of backlinks from one campaign, for example, and we are potentially going to be achieving links on higher domain authority websites with greater traffic volumes, because we're talking sort of your tier 1, your tier 2 media publications. So lots of different sort of benefits to going down the digital PR route. The other thing that you could do as well is looking for any sort of trending topics that are in the news already, and then using the term newsjacking. sort of jumping on the bandwagon really to we don't know what's going to be in the news next week or next month, for example. We can't predict that. So if something comes into the news and that's relevant to one of our clients, how can we jump on that bandwagon and turn a PR campaign around pretty quickly to get a press release out there and gain some coverage? So yeah, there's quite a few different types of digital PR activity, but they're kind of the key ways that we can achieve backlinks for clients.
Yeah, I think Jodie's absolutely nailed that. Not really anything to add on to that. She's kind of just absolutely smashed it. So yeah, I think from an SEO perspective, digital PR can be really powerful because, like you said, it can pick up a lot of links very quickly if you get the right digital PR campaign and it takes off. The right media outlet picks it up, you can suddenly pick up a lot of very powerful backlinks very quickly. So it can be really strong there, but it takes a lot of effort to create it because you've got to create something worthwhile for them. You've got to create something, you've got to be adding something to a story, and that's an expert opinion or creating some data or something, but the creation process is a bit more involved than often your normal link building, but it can be incredibly powerful when it lands right.
Perfect. So leading nicely on to the next question. So how does content marketing correlate with digital PR campaigns?
Okay, so content marketing is when you're creating the content. The two really work really well together. So you create your content yourself, and as Jodie mentioned, there's different ways to do that and different ways to connect with that. Either you're creating some data, or you're jumping on a trending topic, or you're providing an expert opinion on something. But once you create that content, you own it. It's yours, and then that's where digital PR can step in and really drive it, because then that's when we could start going out to these publications saying, look at this awesome content that we've got, you need to include this in your content. It really what's the word I'm looking for, really adds to your content, really improves what you're trying to do, and we can provide that for you. And then once you do that, once they start including it, you get that link, and that's ultimately what we're trying to get, that link at the end.
Content marketing is often about providing something that's really useful or valuable to the audience, isn't it? So if you if you offer sort of how-to guides, for example, on your website, so you've got a really long form guide that sort of goes step by step, perhaps has a video on there, goes into detail about how to achieve something, that piece of content has got the opportunity to rank within its own right within Google, because it's an optimized piece of content to rank for how to whatever the guide is about. But actually you might then find that that can become a valuable piece of content that could be picked up in the media as well. So like Andy says, if that piece of content, if it's really valuable information and a journalist is writing about something that that how-to guide adds value to their article, the two can go hand in hand. It's almost, a lot of the time, it's sort of evergreen content that is really informative, really valuable to the audience, that can be picked up, and it can gain those backlinks naturally.
Definitely. So how can SEOs and digital PR teams work together then for sort of the best integrated campaigns?
So I think we've touched on using digital PR to drive links as well, but I think one area that's often overlooked that can really help with SEO campaign is branded search. So it often gets overlooked because it can be quite difficult to drive branded search, but digital PR can really drive branded search, and it can have a huge impact on your unbranded search. Lots of people don't make the connection, but there's a campaign that I worked with for a number of years where it's a bit of a weird one to use an example, because we were number 2 and we stayed number 2. We could never get number 1, and they had one competitor consistently that we could never get past, despite all our SEO metrics being stronger. And that's because that campaign, that their competitor was running a lot of PR. They were running a lot of digital PR and they were doing TV advertising, they were doing radio advertising, and they were doing lots of digital PR. So they were driving a huge amount of branded search. So to the degree where their brand name plus their core service had more search volume than just the core service on its own. So that drives a really strong connection in Google that their brand is so synonymous with that service that more people are searching for the two combined than on its own. So of course Google's going to put them number one for everything related to that service, because their brand is so connected to that service through branded search that Google absolutely knows that anything related to that service, their brand is relevant for, and lots of people are interested in it. So of course it's going to rank number one, and we could never get past them because the client I was working with would never do PR. They just didn't want to run PR. Like I say, we were number two, and we stayed number two consistently for the life of the campaign, but we could never get past that one because they were running digital PR and we weren't. So they had that advantage that we just couldn't compete with without doing digital PR ourselves.
It's a great example that that Andy, of how branded search can really help. And it comes back to Google looking at those references for a business, and if people already know your brand name, that's giving your brand a lot of authority. So the more branded search there is can really help, like you say, that wider sort of non-branded performance within search, because your domain and your brand overall is gaining that credibility and authority.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah, and I think as you've both said, they work really well, sort of combined and together in an integrated way, with the PR growing sort of the brand awareness and sort of the overall domain authority, and then the link building sort of that individual URL authority and the relevancy from sort of that anchor text you're using as well. And together, I think that is sort of the best way of just improving the overall sort of backlink profile, the links that you're getting from them sources from the PR, and then obviously the links that you're getting from sort of the more specific terms that you're targeting through your backlink, so through your outreach, sorry. So yeah, I think, like I say, an integrated campaign can work extremely well together, and I would recommend it to almost anyone. So last things then, so are there any sort of top tips for utilizing the two together that you'd recommend?
I think we've covered, we touched on some of these earlier in terms of, utilize your position as an expert, particularly if you're in a complicated or technical niche. If you don't have a person to fill that role, create someone to be the face of your business that you can use as an expert, that can, give interviews, that can speak on complicated topics and become an expert opinion. So I think that works really. That can be a really powerful way of driving PR, as well as create data. Creating data works wonders, and so many publications, they want data because they can print data easily. They can make a story out of data easily. So if you're in an industry and you're gathering data, make use of it. A lot of industries are gathering data, so make use of that data you've got. Work out how you can connect that to things people would be interested in. How can you turn that data into a story? And then that's when you can start connecting with the publications, even if it's just industry publications. You talk of publication digital PR and people think like the Daily Mail and the Sun and all these. While they are great links to have, it's not all relevant. For going back to relevancy, it's not always relevant. Digital publication specifically in your niche can be much more powerful than them for your niche. So work out how to make the data you've got into a story that it will be interesting for people in that niche, and then you can start approaching people in that niche with your data and start on digital PR.
Yeah, I think for me, the top tips for me would be consistent. Be consistent with your link building and with your activity. Google needs to see that there is constant activity of those references coming in, whether they're from digital PR or whether they're from sort of outreach type link building tactics. But having that activity and being consistent with it, I would say is crucial.
Yeah, definitely. I think also supporting one another. Whereas if you have a website and you're just doing digital PR on its own, for a website that doesn't rank or doesn't have a built-up backlink profile, it's not going to do as well. Whereas a website's doing both of them together.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So yeah, that's all we've got time for today. So thank you very much, James, Andy, and Jodie for joining me. And hopefully everyone's learned a little bit more about link building and how it can help with your business as well. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch you again soon.
Thanks a lot, Lewis. Thanks
Thanks,
everyone.
Lewis.
Thank you.
Bye.